First of all, I want to say that I'm someone who truly loves this franchise. I really love it. It's not for nothing that I have many ReZero videos on my main channel. I also want to let you know that I'm stopping the editing here. I'm sorry, but I want to get this video out quickly. In this video, I want to briefly talk about certain things that I feel, for better or worse, people are overlooking when giving their opinions on the episode. Many people don't realize they suffer from weekly reader syndrome, or aren't aware that the reset in the story was inevitable due to things I'll clarify soon. While there were 3 episodes released today about the supposed end of Arc 9, in reality, those episodes can barely be considered as one. That's because episode 58 is just a quick recap of things we already guessed would happen, along with long descriptions of things we already knew. Then episode 59 is just episode 11 of Arc 9, but rewritten with certain variations. And let's not even talk about episode 60, which is just an interlude of very few pages. As you can see, there is apparently a lot to comment on, but when push comes to shove, I don't feel like there's much to say. Also, I have this strange feeling that just makes me not really want to cover this episode. It's not that I'm feeling disappointed or joyful, it's just a feeling inside me, that's all. Maybe it's a feeling born from the fear that no matter what I say now, I'm going to be labeled negatively anyway. What I can say is that my opinion of the episode changed completely when I read it live with my followers versus when I read it alone. So, I think today, more than ever, I'd ask you to do the same. Don't let your opinion be just an echo of what everyone else says. Just make sure your opinion is truly yours and not something copied. Anyway, let's start with episode 58. Regarding this episode, I must say I was surprised by the revelation Reinhard makes regarding the sword and Subaru. In case you didn't catch it, the fact that the knight unsheathes the sword against the protagonist means that the sword recognizes Subaru as a worthy opponent. This is curious because it means that back in episode 1, Reinhard was more curious about Subaru due to the fact that the sword detected him as someone worthy. I don't know if you know this, but the author once said that Reinhard's point of view was a spoiler. So it seems that with this revelation, he was referring to the sword's evaluation of Subaru being worthy. Obviously, we don't know what the sword considers worthy, but we know it considers Cecilis and Teresia the same way. I'm just saying that this revelation is going to make the theories about Subaru's sealed memories more relevant than ever. In case you don't know, it is believed that Subaru has certain sealed memories. Memories that would explain why he knows Satella or why he is capable of using Return by Death. Another curious detail is that part of the reason ALDEBARAN stopped being the following star was to make Priscilla queen, since, one way or another, her coronation would end the witch's life. It is reaffirmed once again that ALDEBARAN sought to kill the witch, and he sought that because otherwise another witch would be born who would end the world. This part confuses me quite a bit too. Does this mean that in the future Subaru will have a daughter who will destroy the world? I know this sounds weird, but it's the only way I can make sense of the traitor saying that if he doesn't deal with the witch, another one will be born to end the world. Although a friend of mine has a different take. He thinks Subaru will actually be the one to blame for Emilia becoming one. Another thing that sounded interesting was something that really angered ALDEBARAN. I'm talking about the fact that when Subaru came out of the seal, Emilia didn't look at him at all and only looked at Subaru. This filled him with rage. But this rage is more interesting when we remember that ALDEBARAN claims he is an entity ignored by the witch. And the fact that it's emphasized that Emilia ignores him in this moment is suspicious. On top of that, recently the possibility was dropped that Emilia is a witch's daughter, and another person who is in the same situation as Emilia is Echidna. Does this parallel between Echidna and Emilia mean that both are witches, but it hasn't been officially revealed yet? We'll see soon. What's most curious, and what will surely fuel the theories about ALDEBARAN being Subaru's son, is that before the episode ends, the traitor insults the protagonist, telling him he hates him and that he's a damn idiot. At least that's what the English translation says. However, the Japanese text reveals something else. It turns out that the honorifics ALDEBARAN used with Subaru are the ones a son uses to address his father. Finally, in retrospect, the title of this episode is a great detail. In case you didn't catch it, today's episode is called The Sound of Chains. Actually, there was already a title like that in the past. I'm talking about the time Rem killed Subaru during the Arc 2 loops. You know, back in Season 1 when she killed him with her flail. If today's episode references that title, it's because Rem kills Subaru the moment he steps out of the sphere. But unlike the first time, where she killed him out of suspicion, this time she kills him out of love. And she does it because she knows this is what Subaru wanted. Some of you might not remember, but many episodes ago, Petra had a conversation with Rem where she asked if she would do anything to save Subaru. Keep in mind that by that moment, Rem had already deduced that Subaru possessed an ability similar to Aldebaran's. Rem was conflicted, not only because of her own feelings about saving the protagonist, but also because of Petra. If Rem said no to the girl's question, was she really going to let Petra carry the burden of being the one to force a reset on Subaru? Regardless of whether there's a definitive answer to that question, we have to remember that Rem is someone who usually punishes herself out of guilt. The Arc 9 Rem is a Rem who treated Subaru poorly in Arc 7, and I'm sure she feels that if anyone has to take on that burden, she must be the one to do it as penance. I want to make this clear. No matter how much we sugarcoat the actions taken by the protagonist's allies today, and no matter how much we try to dress up the situation, it doesn't change the fact that Rem and Petra killed the protagonist. Are Rem and Petra selfish for imposing this unilateral wish on Subaru and the others? Honestly, I don't know. After all, Subaru was already aiming for that outcome. And I see it as totally logical that Petra would reach the same conclusion after accessing the memories of the Subaru copy residing within her. Finally, the act of Subaru ending his life for someone's well-being isn't exactly a new topic. I mean, we are in Arc 9, guys. The issue of how the protagonist decides to use his life wasn't solved in the first season, nor was it fixed in the second. It doesn't end in the third season, or even in the upcoming fourth season. Even in the Empire arc, Subaru redefines once again the conditions under which he would die for someone. To this day, Subaru's resolve is that he will save his allies, but he doesn't just want them alive. He wants his loved ones to be well and keep all their limbs attached. It is he who decides who he is going to save. And that is terrifying. I'm not the one saying this. His enemy, Todd Fang, says it. He watched with fear and disgust as a repugnant being like Subaru decided to save someone based purely on his own whims. I think sometimes we forget that ReZero is essentially about how Subaru is a sacrificial pawn fighting against fate with the help of his friends. But when everything goes wrong or goes to hell, he forces himself to redo things based on his preferences at the moment. Preferences that, as I said, keep changing in every arc. And as if this weren't complicated enough, there's also the fact that he has to respect certain rules. Not only the rules of his power, but the rules he is bound to by his deal with Roswaal. In the second season, they made a bet. If he didn't save one of the people he was supposed to save in the sanctuary, then Roswaal would kill his allies according to their contract. As of today's episode, Petra had already lost her memories, but the others could still remember her. And while Roy was also dead, that doesn't necessarily imply the main problem is solved. Remember, the witch broke out of the seal because information about return by death was leaked. Roy's death would return the memories to Petra, and this would inevitably wake the witch from her slumber again, leading her to try and destroy the world once more. What am I getting at with this? Simple. The loop was necessary. Too many rules had already been broken. I think maybe people are too frustrated to realize this and are just exercising their right to complain. And this isn't even counting the fact that Subaru's allies were left with mental scars from breaking down inside Aldebaran's domain. Do you seriously expect that capricious and particular being known as Subaru to see all this and not choose to be the martyr who carries everything once again? I think that question answers itself. I'm sure that even if Rem and Petra hadn't killed him, he would have eventually done it himself. In the end, Subaru must play the role of the martyr again and use his power to fix things, just as he has been doing since the beginning of the story. He must do it while his allies can only provide him with limited comfort without knowing the full extent of his situation, or the world will end. But those are all my thoughts regarding episode 58, at least for now. Episode 59 is essentially just episode 11 of Arc 9, but told from Aldebaran's perspective. There are some changes, though. Since Subaru has already turned back time, he knows about the betrayal of that helmeted bastard. Because of this, he can't replicate the dialogue from the original timeline 100%. Something interesting reaffirmed here is that Beatrice was created by the faction of Echidna that Al didn't know. Aldebaran deduces she was made with a specific goal in mind. Obviously, the text doesn't confirm it outright, but it's been a long-held theory that Subaru was the person Beatrice was waiting for in the library all along. But that's a topic for another time. Another interesting point is how Aldebaran refers to Subaru. He calls him the guy who has a star's name and gives star names. Sure, you could argue he said that because he saw Subaru name Louis Spica in the Empire. But remember, at the end of the previous episode, it seemed like the traitor was about to call him father. And ALDEBARAN, or rather Rigel, bears the name of a star. Did he say that because Subaru named him Rigel, or was he referring to Spica? Either way, it's suspicious. There's another point mentioned that's a bit confusing. I'm not sure if it's the translation or something else. It says Subaru was the one who created the spell formula to seal ALDEBARAN, but it also says Beatrice deciphered it. So who actually made the formula to recreate Ul Shamak? Honestly, it's a bit messy. My take is that Betty deciphered ALDEBARAN's technique in seconds. And it wasn't just plot convenience. The traitor himself previously said she'd be capable of it. She deciphered it, gave the recipe to Subaru, and after return by death, he gave it to the Beatrice of the new timeline. Then we get a melancholic scene with Subaru where he wonders why he feels so bad and frustrated. He feels like he shouldn't be upset now that he's undone everything. However, that feeling is inevitable. No matter how broken his power is, in the end, he can't fix everything perfectly. And one of those unfixable things is his bad relationship with the star, Rigel. I know it might seem stupid that the protagonist wants to fix things with the traitor, but just as Emilia has the flaw of worrying excessively about everyone, Subaru feels that same need to connect. This character trait has been established for a long time, but sometimes we seem to forget that side of him. Subaru closes this episode in the most faithful way possible. He declares that no matter what happens, he will save ALDEBARAN too. Now, I understand why the author recently commented that ALDEBARAN's happiness depends on how much effort Subaru puts into it. But let's move on to the final episode and the interlude. And finally, we arrive at the interlude, the part that unironically did the most to improve my opinion on how this arc closes. You see, I was actually pretty upset at first. Seeing Petra sacrifice herself after previously saying she wouldn't do that felt like a massive contradiction to me. But after reading her inner thoughts in this part, I realized how close-minded I was being. Petra says she doesn't want to sacrifice herself, but if it's necessary to deliver the final blow or avoid the worst ending, she will do it. Personally, I find that logical. I mean, if you were with your family and everyone was going to die or get hurt, wouldn't you prefer to be the only one who suffers? Well, that's exactly what happens with the Witch of Melancholy. She was serious about avoiding self-sacrifice, but the situation forced her to have a backup plan in case the worst happened. And I love that the story addressed this, because I think these motivations should be communicated by the character, not just left for us to deduce. It also shows how she and Rem are fully aware that what they're doing to Subaru isn't good. But aside from the fact that Subaru himself seeks it, their wish is for the person they love most. They simply don't want him to lose anything. Something I haven't seen anyone talk about is how difficult this decision was for Rem and Petra. And I don't just mean the act of killing Subaru. Taking this action implies that these current versions of themselves are going to disappear along with the reset. Even so, they are willing to sacrifice themselves just to ensure the person they love loses nothing. In the end, Subaru isn't the only one sacrificing his life for the good of others. The rest of the cast does it too. So, if you're going to criticize Subaru for that, you have to criticize Petra and Rem and everyone else as well. All these characters are idiots. But they are idiots whose virtues and flaws we already know. Finally, I'm aware there are still unanswered questions. Like what the hell the Six Tongues secret organization was doing during all this. Or what's going on with Anastasia after her kidnapping. I just ask you to remember that in the end, we follow this story week to week, which makes us suffer from weekly reader syndrome. That syndrome inevitably prevents us from seeing the big picture. I'm not saying something will happen to change your perception of the arc, but I am saying new context could change the meaning, for better or worse, of everything we've read so far. I have nothing more to add, other than noting that we likely still have 1 or 2 more chapters left. Anyway, if no more episodes come out, I'll make sure to finish and upload my hour-long Arc 6 Iceberg Theory video this week. I hope you check it out. See you